All right, welcome to A Stronger America Making the Grade, our web chat. This is on the heels of a very successful program we had on MSNBC. We thank you all for being here today. This is a live Facebook chat. We also want to get your responses on Twitter as well. We're going to spend about 30 minutes covering three very essential issues, and we have two teachers that will help us understand the teacher's perspective on the key issues that we've put out today. About 10 minutes each is what our objective is. Now, we'd like to stay very solutions focused in our discussion. We again would like to get a teacher's understanding of these important issues that we'll go through. We will have three digital questions, and what we'd like to do is have you give us your responses, your thoughts, and what we'll do is we'll ask those questions if we can of our guests, and you can see them at the bottom of the screen right now. We have two very important people with us. First of all, a veteran teacher on your left-hand side, right about here, and there she is. Okay, that's Nefertari and Kenge, and thank you for being here today. We also have a former teacher and executive director of Teach for America in Detroit as well. Annis Brown joined us. Annis, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we are going to look into these three subjects. First of all, we're going to look at teachers' needs in the classrooms. Then we're going to move on to our second topic, which is the teachers themselves, these great people that influence children around the world. How do we recruit them? How do we retain them? And how do we develop them? That's our second topic. And then our third topic that we're going to cover today are the students themselves and some of the dynamics that they face day to day. First digital question for those of you who are out there and would like to give us your thoughts. What is the biggest challenge a teacher faces in the classroom? What do you think? What is the biggest challenge a teacher faces in the classroom? Facebook.com/StrongerAmerica. That's one way you can let us know. The other way you can let us know is Twitter @StrongerAmerica. Okay, let us know what you think. We'll be watching that as I'm speaking here with both Nefertari as well as Annis. I want to start with what was a very dynamic, a very passionate answer to a question that was asked of Nefertari. And I'll play that right now for you. The question was about zip codes and the differences that students are treated in different zip codes. I asked that of Nefertari, and this is what she said. Take a listen.
The single most variable in the success of a child is the teacher in that classroom.
And we're going to talk
not allow that child to fail.
Right.
So if I'm the variable that's dependent upon that child's success, why am I disrespected by a system that doesn't want to pay me, that wants to cut my insurance?
Right.
Okay, so that was Nefertari about a month ago. Nefertari, I was standing there, and I have to admit, I had the microphone there going, she definitely has a view about this. What were you thinking? What do you feel can be changed to help teachers feel more respected?
We need to change the culture in America, which disrespects teachers as a whole. In fact, we need to pay teachers commensurate with what they're bringing to the classroom. We're asking for teachers to be accountable for so much today, and we're not paying them commensurate with those expectations, which are extremely high. There are just levels of disrespect. It's within the system. In general, Americans have a very positive belief about teachers in the sense that they would like their children to become teachers. And they feel that teachers...
Let's build off of what you just said there, Nefertari, and go to Annis. So, Annis, she was mentioning money as well as respect, and put those two into context for me. Young teachers, as they come into the classroom, money and respect, and how those things different and the same.
I think those things are actually very different and not at the heart of why good teachers really get into this work. I think the reason that good teachers get into this work, teachers like Nefertari and myself, is because we love it. We want to teach. We want to help students. We have content areas that we feel like we are strong in, and we want to pass that knowledge along. For me, that's the most important thing.
That is what many people say. Nefertari, low-income schools. teachers often complain about what you brought up, which are low salaries. Yet, on the same point, there are some statistics that say the money has increased. How do you think, and what do you think schools should do with this? How should they address the problem of low salaries?
Well, the problem could be remedied with the incentives. There are a lot of government stimulus dollars being discussed with respect to education. I think a lot of that money is going to be misspent if we're not going to put it in teacher training programs and to retain those excellent teachers who are already in place before they leave the profession. The reality is that the best and brightest of us are not coming into the teaching field. They're choosing engineering, they're choosing medicine, they're choosing law. So the way that you're attracting outstanding, above reproach teachers is with alternative programs like the New York City Teaching Fellows, like Teach for America, where you're drawing upon incentives to pull these great people into positions and requiring them to go into high-need schools to make that change.
Okay, we're going to get to that point about the development of teachers shortly. I want to move on to a subject that's related to this, about the way money makes it to schools. Let me play this for you. Ben Chavis, from the founder of American Indian Model School, said this during our session on MSNBC a month ago. Take a listen.
It irritates me. If you're one of the lowest performing schools, you get the most money. If you're a lousy school, we pay you more money. That's insane. Achievement gap, there's no achievement gap in America. That's BS. There's a preparedness gap.
So evidently, Annis, he was not shy about his feelings talking about this. Ben wasn't. What do you think about this preparedness gap and the way that schools are rewarded when it comes to the money and testing?
I think it needs to be a both and not an either or. So yes, schools that are underperforming do need more resources to train their teachers, to get people back up to speed, to redo curricula. But high achieving schools also need additional resources to, as Nefertari pointed out, retain great teachers, to bring in coaches. It's a both and right now we've chosen the either or approach.
Well, does it not, when you reward the schools that have the lower schools with higher amounts of money, does that not incentivize the wrong response here when we look at it, Nefertari?
Not necessarily. I think, like Annis just said, the money that is funneled to those low performing schools is often funneled into resources and programs to make those schools better. But by the same token, I disagree with Mr. Chavis. I do believe that there is an achievement gap. That's proven. It's data driven. It's not something that is just a fallacy in our minds. And unfortunately,
how do you deal with that?
Gap exists along color line.
And Nefertari, how do you deal with that? So you have limited resources. How do you make it work? What are some of the magic solutions that you put out there as an experienced teacher?
Well, you have to be creative. I think teaching is an art. It's a love. There's not a whole lot that a college education or a teacher preparation program can give you, which is not innate, in order for it to translate into that classroom as a success story. So teachers are innovative. We're creative. We are overworked, underpaid, and we are doing it. There are those of us who are making strides every day. Our children are outperforming and
what is it you do?
How are we doing it?
How are you creative? Yeah, because you make it work. Give me an idea.
Well, I think classroom management is key. I believe that technology, the use of technology is also key, increasingly so. I think in order to meet the differentiated needs of our students who come to us on various levels, we have to be, completely prepared to deal with it in whatever creative ways that a teacher needs to do so. We have to intimately know our students, know their needs, and then be able to meet their needs.
Annis, I want to move on to another subject, part of this issue of needs in the classroom with the time we've got left for this segment. And this has to do with the number of hours that students are in class. I want to show you this statistic. It's very interesting. It says that U.S. students go to school fewer hours per day and fewer days per year than students, they happen to look at Asia. And this coming from the Business Week and James P. Lennesley, it looks like. Now, what do you think about that, Annis? If we increase the number of hours, increase the number of days, will that help students?
I think we've seen examples of that actually work well. When you think about KIPP schools, the Knowledge is Power program network, one of the things that they do is that they extend their school day. Their kids start a little bit earlier and end a little bit later. They have a Saturday program. And teachers actually, to Nefertari's earlier point, are paid a little more in order to be there longer with their kids. And they see outstanding results. They see their kids outperform their peers and go on to college and be successful.
How much more, Annis? How many more hours, how many days a week do we need to really make a difference from what you know?
You know, I don't think there's a silver bullet there. I don't think there's a silver bullet about the amount of time. I think it's how you use the time. So when they you know, for example, again with KIPP, when they do their Saturday program, they're doing it with specific remediation for specific kids who have a gap. When they stay longer in the morning, it's for advisory so that kids actually get to build a strong relationship with a teacher in that building.
All right, last question on this subject, and I want to talk about more teachers. This is for you, Nefertari. According to the Digest of Education Studies, it says that the number of public school teachers has tripled in the last 50 years, but it has led to a 43% reduction in student-teacher ratio. Help me understand that.
Well, there's a swelling of the population. I've read polls which say that between now and the year 2013, 1 million teachers are going to be needed because of the baby boomer population. 1 million. So, 1 million. So of those 1 million teachers, are we going to continue to scrape the bottom of the barrel and get those who are passionate about education like Annis and Nefertari, or are we going to attract the best and the brightest by paying teachers a respectable salary, giving them positive reinforcement, just like we are told to give our students, and rewarding us when the job is done correctly?
Great. All right, we're going to move on to our second topic. Again, I want to remind people that are joining us here online that you can tell us what you think. We're watching your responses right now. We also have some responses from earlier, and we are going to get to them actually in this segment. Our second segment, our second topic here, Nefertari and Annis, is about you. Yeah, you. We're going to talk about recruiting you, retaining you, and developing folks like you. Just great teachers. And how do we do that? So, drop off. And that's the first part we'll talk about, is drop off about teachers. Every year, over 10% of new teachers hired leave the profession after 1 year. Annis, what's happening here?
I think there are a number of things happening. First of all, teaching is tough. And just like any other profession, you have to work hard at it.
Yeah.
You have to be trained to do it. I also think that there are some innate characteristics in people who want to come into this work and be great teachers. I know, Richard, you and Nefertari went to the University of Michigan, but I went to Michigan State, and we have the #1 ed program in the nation.
I still love you. I still love you, Annis. You are still wonderful.
One of the things that they've done there, and that we do at Teach for America, is begin to look at people's leadership traits, looking at their leadership characteristics when we recruit them, seeing if they have what it takes to persevere through the tough stuff, and seeing if they actually have what it takes to go out and be part of the community and know their kids really well. And I think that sort of front end recruiting is what ends up, that other, percentile that ends up staying around. They have those characteristics.
Nefertari, I was reading through some of the material that you had provided to us before this discussion today, and this is about the solutions going forward. You actually walked away from teaching for a while, and then you decided to come on back. How do we get teachers to come on back or to stay? What are some of the solutions here?
I think incentives are huge, Richard. I believe that teachers have to be incentivized just like other professions are. I think if we are chosen from the cream of the crop. I think if you double the base salary of a starting teacher from
Okay.
30,000 to something like 60,000,
Right.
that's even been suggested by Arnie Duncan,
Right.
you know, the Secretary of Education for the nation. What's wrong
Right.
with that? Why are we not seriously considering these solutions to our own problems? Teachers are the best and the brightest, and those who leave cite low pay and lack of support as the reasons why these teachers are leaving within the first 5 years, and then.
And another idea you had was merit pay, which you said, you know, that's
yes.
that's debatable, certainly, because many issues regarding education are debatable. But merit pay, you said, from your perspective, worked out well. I want to take you to this right here, Anis. I want to show you something about what Nefertari was alluding to, and this is about attracting high-quality students. This statistic right here shows that top-performing high school students are far less likely to enter teaching. Look at this right here. Back in '64. And that goes back way before either of the two of you were born. But back in '64, 21% of high-performing students were going to teaching. Look at 2000, just 10 years ago, 11%. So, Anis, how do we attract these? Yeah, what do we do to attract these top-performing high school students?
Yeah, I think we have to go out there and recruit them and show them that the myths aren't true about teaching. Put them in classrooms with other great teachers. Let them see what it takes to actually be successful in this profession and to see that this profession can be rewarding.
But is it just money? Is it just money, or is there more to this? You said there's some things that top-performing students believe that teaching is, but it really isn't.
Yeah, I think people think that teaching is grunt work. That, you know, oh, here are all these people that work really hard and they're not getting paid a lot. But they don't see the other benefits. They don't see the relationships that we build with students. And when they come back to your classroom, you know, 5 years later saying, I graduated from high school and it's because of you. I think that when I even think about our Teach for America teacher, those are the types of things that inspire them. Really actually knowing that they can make a difference and that they can do so in the lives of children.
And there in Detroit, you've placed hundreds of teachers in those locations to be able to make that difference with a very high percentage coming from not only, again, Michigan State, but also University of Michigan, just in your area. So good work to you. I want to play this bit of sound from Laura Papineau, and this is about how good teachers can make a big difference. And this is with respect to what you just said there, Anis. Nefertari, I'm going to get your reaction. Let's play what Laura said during our session a month ago first.
An effective teacher in 1 year can close the achievement gap, pardon the expression, by 10 percentile points. Whereas the bottom teacher in the 25th percentile, actually the students lose 5%. So there are differences between teachers, and we have to face up to that fact.
Okay, so Nefertari, that's clear. If the numbers are right, then if she is correct, if Laura and what she says is correct, you make a huge difference as a good teacher, and a bad teacher even worse. It makes a very, very huge dent in the success of a student.
Absolutely. I think that a teacher should be celebrated. I think that I'm a champion of teachers. I think that teachers who are doing what we need to do in the classroom, which is raising student achievement, particularly those of us who purposefully go into urban areas where the children are greatly underserved. We want to teach those Black and Latino males, those children of color, those ELL students, English language learners, those who are labeled as special ed. Those of us who take on that challenge are those who are heroes. And I don't want this country and America thinking that they can balance the budget on the back of an excellent teacher like myself. If I teach and my results are in the 95th percentile and my students come back and praise me, as Anis has said, and say, Miss Nefertari, you're the reason that I went to college, or I am doing a mentoring program right now because of what you did when I was in school, then reward me. Don't cut my salary. Don't lay me off first when this country is in trouble and in recession, and don't make me pay out of pocket for my benefits. That's what's happening across the country. It's shameful, and until America gets it right, we will not reform education.
I'm sure a lot of kids are probably beating down the doors to get into your classroom to thank you for what you've done for them. Anis, so when we look at this this dynamic of the bad teachers hurting students to a very bad point, shall I say, there was one statistic I saw that said if you got rid of 6 to 10% of the worst teachers and you just replaced them with moderate teachers, that you would see the United States students reach global levels, top performing global levels. Is it really that bad of a problem, this issue of poor performing teachers, Anis?
I think it is. I mean, you wouldn't let a surgeon who was bad at his job with dire consequences coming out of that bad practice just stay in his job. He'd have to either get better or move on to a different profession. I was in an elementary school yesterday, and there were 3 Teach for America teachers there, and one of them had raised the reading levels of her kindergartners and got them onto a second grade level. And her kids then moved on into another Teach for America teacher's classroom who's teaching them in first grade. She, last year with her kids, moved them 2 levels. So again, think about the impact that classroom of kids is going to have on society just by being able to come out of first grade reading on 4th and 5th grade levels, far ahead of their peers, ready to just knock it out of the park in anything that's put in front of them.
So Nefertari, now back to you. When we think about developing great teachers, I want to take a look at what Education Secretary Arne Duncan had said of teachers. He said, you are not just saving lives like doctors, you're also creating lives.
That's right.
Powerful words there, powerful words. I can tell you don't disagree. What have you done to further that idea?
Well, I've taught my students outside of the box. I haven't just adhered to the curriculum. In order to be creative, I've had to connect with my students in a very real way. And sometimes that does mean adopting them. That means knowing them intimately enough to know what grade level they've come to you on so that you can increase them 2 to 3 reading levels in the time that you have them. And it means feeding them. It means meeting their need in every way. Sometimes it just means listening. But it certainly is the great responsibility of us to have a greater respect for teachers who spend a parental amount of time with children, particularly in early education. I'm a secondary teacher. Those who teach the babies are spending as much time or more with those children as their parents are.
We got 3 more minutes in this segment before I want to move on. And Anis, I want to kind of wrap this second topic up to you. You know, there are many professions, surgeons, astronauts, folks that are trained, and when they're first out of college, you don't put them in a shuttle to take it up to the moon, right? You don't have them open up into open heart surgery. And if children are that important, should we be allowing fresh graduates to get straight into teaching, or is there a way of nurturing them, coddling them, to be side by side and move forward here?
Yeah, I think it goes back, Richard, to those characteristics that we talked about before. So I know Teach for America, for example, after 20 years of studying what the best teachers do, came up with an algorithm to just select and recruit our best and brightest. And so really looking for those characteristics and then beginning to train them before they get into the classroom, I think does allow for new, fresh, young, energetic leaders to come into the classroom and teach. I don't think that there's anything that should hinder them, as long as they have that strong content knowledge. They are planning purposefully. They want to get to know our kids and our communities. Why not?
And again, we can't emphasize, if you do agree with the point that raising kids in school is like taking a spaceship to the moon, which in some cases, my mom would probably say it was like taking 2 or 3 to the moon. But then we should do what you're saying there. I want to move on to the third topic, and I want to remind all the folks that are with us, I know we are watching your contributions here. Facebook.com/Stronger America, and Twitter, that's at Stronger America as well. And we'll be getting to some of your responses. In fact, we had some responses a little bit earlier today. And on our third topic of students, helping students, and standardized testing, and we have a response from a student on that topic. Gianni Crawford wrote to us and she said, as a student, I say forget the standardized tests. That's exactly what they are. Everyone does not learn the same no matter what these educators say and no matter what classes each and every student must take. Nefertari, you're a little bit more down the middle on this. You see where it can help and where it doesn't help. Talk to Gianni about this.
Right. I just don't think that they're going to go away. I think standardized testing is going to be here. I don't think that it's a full measurement of what a child can do. So I obviously empathize with Gianni's point. I do think that there are excellent teachers who can prepare you for a standardized test, however, without teaching to the test necessarily. They can give you a comprehensive world-class education, and you can just be prepared to be a lifelong learner. You can just be an awesome individual. You will ultimately do well on the standardized test, but it won't be because someone taught you how to bubble in, circles on a Scantron and all of that nonsense.
So Anis, with that moderate look at standardized testing, what do you think the solution is? Is it right here down the middle? Use it sometimes, use it not in other situations, really putting it in perspective? What do you think is the right way?
I agree. I don't think they're going away at all. I totally agree with Nefertari, and there are ways that you can prepare students to be great test takers and to do well on the test without necessarily sitting in the classroom doing test prep copies all day. When I think about my 8th graders in the South Bronx who had to take a high stakes test at the end of 8th grade to determine whether or not they would move on to high school, the way that 100% of my kids passed that test was for us to just go out and experience things. My South Bronx kids who had never been to Manhattan, we went down to the Met. We went to different plays. Then we came back and we talked about it and we dissected it and we wrote about it because I was an English teacher. And those experiences and those things helped them to do well on the test without us sitting there going through copies.
I can't help but ask this question to you, Nefertari, about vocational schools. And because Anis, you were talking about doing practice, right? Taking the theory and actually, seeing things. What do you think is important here for students when we look at that, Nefertari? Do we need to have more of, the auto shops, the wood shops, the taking of what's in the classroom out into the field?
We do need practical application. Unfortunately, we're moving away from that, I feel, in this country. What we're doing is sort of replacing old school thought and modes of operation with today's model, which is not going to work. As our student children become more technologically savvy, teachers in the classroom must meet that learning curve as well. I use smartboard technology in my classroom.
Well,
computers, we get the New York Times.
Nefertari, let's talk.
I'm sorry, Richard.
I apologize to you because we just had a question that's right down the alley of where you're going with this. Therese Greenhow Robinson saying, hey, I wonder how technology today has helped or hurt the way teachers are teaching today, and you're saying it's helped you.
It's helped tremendously. The only way that I can meet the needs of the children in my classroom in Brooklyn, I was in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn for the last 3 years, right in the trenches. And I, for the last 2 of those 3 years, had a collaborative team teaching setting where general education students were combined with special education students, those who have the most needs. I had learners who were visual learners, auditory learners, some who learned musically, kinesthetically. And I needed a smart board. I needed music. I needed any and everything I could bring out of a toolbox to teach.
So tell me, what's in your toolbox, and what do you think really works here?
I think you have to be creative. If I have to, specifically, if I need to teach an ELA subject or I need to address figurative language, I can do so by using a clip from a film.
Right.
I can play that clip from a film in order to motivate my lesson. I can get into the meat of my lesson after I've gotten my children's attention out. I mean 100% at rapt attention, and allow them to apply the workshop model. I demonstrate what they need to do effectively. They go into groups, they replicate what they've seen me do, and they teach one another. They literally learn at a lightning fast pace, and they are able to soar on these standardized tests. But I have to be creative. creative.
Right, you have to be creative. You're an entrepreneur in your classroom. Anis, so Teachers for America, the hundreds of teachers that you've placed there in the Detroit area, what's worked for them when it comes to technology? What have you seen?
Yeah, I've seen everything from the use of smart boards to going into a math classroom and seeing them use Google Earth to actually look at a house and measure the perimeter of a home. I've seen people, bring in so we just had this initiative with Apple where they gave all of our Teach for America teachers across the nation iPads.
Well, isn't that nice?
Yeah, which is crazy. And our teachers are bringing those iPads into the classroom and showing our kids how to use them and allowing them to use apps to learn different sub-content area. It's been great.
So those are some of the ideas that could work when it comes to technology. I want to show you what Wes Moore said about the gap. He called it a dangerous gap, and this is about expectations. And I'm shifting gears just a little, but we're still looking at, again, the students and what they're dealing with in the classroom. I'll play you this first, and then I'll get your reaction.
Okay.
The most nefarious and dangerous gap we have in this country is the expectation gap, is the fact that we have children based on the zip code that they are born into and the zip code that they live in that we've already predestined as to where their finale is going to end up.
So we're kind of ending the way we started here in Nefertari, and that has to do, that's right, zip codes. And if you can express to us what the actual difference is where you are at, if you cross the boundary wherever you live and you go to another area, how different is different? Is it a 1 and a 0, or is it a little bit more gray?
Oh, it's like a 1 and an 8. The difference is huge. It's marked. The children are coming, unfortunately, with a low sense of morale in schools which are underfunded in urban districts where the focus is on anything other than an achievement in the classroom. So there's a disparate amount of supplies and resources in classrooms in urban areas, as you know, in comparison to the suburban counterparts in terms of the technological advances. And there's no room for any doubt with regard to that achievement gap. The children who are falling into that widening gap are children of color, are children who come from our urban areas. They do have the zip codes, which often translate into lowered expectations from even the teachers who are in front of them every day. It's unacceptable, and that must change immediately.
Teachers for America, Anis, as you deploy all of these very bright young minds across all zip codes, is that not one of the solutions then, to have a global, or I should say regional or citywide view where you can deploy resources based on these inequalities that Nefertari is describing?
Yeah, I don't think that there's a silver bullet. If we knew what to do, I honestly believe we'd be doing it. Where I have seen success is when we have whole schools of excellence. Everyone from that principal to all the teachers in that school are committed to putting their kids on a different life path, and the community then wraps their arms around that school. That's what it's going to take in order to turn things around. Like, when Wes talks about expectations, I think about my own self growing up on the east side of Detroit, going through Detroit public schools, and people feeling like I should be a statistic. And it was the expectations of my teachers that ended up putting me on a different trajectory.
Okay, we are going to finish now. We've covered all three topics as promised, and we were, of course, looking at first in the classroom. Second, we then looked at you two, teachers, how to get great teachers to stay. And then third, we looked at students themselves and some of the dynamics that they've faced inside the classroom. And now I'm going to finish with one question from those out in the blogosphere, those who have been writing into us so far. And I'll start with you, Nefertari. This is a comment from Jesse Harrington, and he's been watching this program, and he says he's been watching. And Jesse says this, Nefertari. You don't want to hear this. He says he's in tears as he thinks about the future of teaching and the lack of real preparation that teachers will be getting in the future. And he wants to know: is he too grim? Give him some hope.
Well, Jesse, I want to give you hope. I want to say that we have to turn around states that think that they can cut funding to education. We want to turn around this nation. We want to put education at the forefront of everyone's agenda. In order for us to be the world-class America that we all strive to be, we do have to funnel those funds. And again, I'm talking about, all the incentives that the government gives. Education should be funneled into teacher education programs specifically, and into retaining excellent teachers who are getting the job done in the classrooms right now as well. Because otherwise, those million teachers, educators that I referenced who need to come into the system between now and 2014 are not going to be the best and the brightest. They're not going to be an Annis and an Nefertari who have a passion that is necessary in order to allow our children to meet the needs of a global 21st century.
Nefertari, thank you. And Annis, you have the last word with Jesse here. How does he feel less grim? Give him hope.
There is a tremendous hope. I think it just needs to go and visit some of these schools that are in the toughest areas that are showing that we can put kids on a totally different trajectory. Talk to some of those teachers about what they've done themselves to be better, and I think you'll have hope, because you know that it's actually not all about a system that's set up to train teachers. It's about these great individuals who are going out there and learning everything they can, doing whatever it takes to be great for their kids.
I had to live with one for 40 years. That's my mom. She taught for 30 years.
Yay.
And so
Wow.
she, like the two of you, had that spark and decided to do that her entire life. I want to thank you both for stopping by today. I think we've had a short but very productive discussion about some of the solutions, some of the ideas that can really make a big difference when we talk about making the grade and we talk about a stronger America. And in this web chat, I think we've been able to touch on some of those items. So Nefertari, again, thank you.
Yes.
Annis, thank you. You two
Thank
and
you,
I
Richard.
are going to do this again. I don't care if you went to Michigan State. I still like you. And
My parents went to Michigan. I didn't actually attend Michigan, but go blue.
there you go. Okay, we're on the same love pool here. It's okay. I want to remind those folks who are out there right now and watching this, we do have a teacher town hall on September 25th. That's on NBC News. You can see that on your local affiliate. You can also see some of that coverage on MSNBC. We will be convening the largest gathering of teachers from across the country. This is just whetting your appetite today. It'll be the second annually televised Teacher Town Hall. We'll have Brian Williams. Tamron Hall will be there too. Education Nation kicking off at the end of this month on NBC News, on MSNBC. Do stick around for that. I want to thank you all again for being here today on this Tuesday to discuss something that is so important to our country. Hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.